The glass and steel expanse of Quantum Systems headquarters gleamed in the San Francisco sunlight as I was escorted to the exit, security guards flanking me like pallbearers at a funeral. Employees peered over monitors as I passed, their expressions a mixture of curiosity and fear. Being marched out was rare at Quantum. The company preferred quieter departures, carefully managed resignations with generous severance packages and ironclad NDAs. My crime didn't merit such gentle handling. Your personal effects will be shipped to your residence, the head of security informed me, his voice professionally neutral as we reached the lobby. Your company devices have been remotely wiped. Of course they have, I replied, handing over my employee badge. Though you might want to tell Brandon that a remote wipe doesn't overwrite everything. A flicker of uncertainty crossed his face, just enough to tell me my parting shot had landed. My name is Maya Krishnan, and until 30 minutes ago, I was the lead security architect at Quantum Systems, one of the world's most powerful tech companies. Our consumer products were in billions of homes across the globe. Our business software ran Fortune 500 companies, and our operating systems powered everything from smartphones to smart cities. What most people didn't know, what I hadn't known until 4 months ago, was that Quantum also provided specialized surveillance software to governments with troubling human rights records, helping them monitor their citizens with unprecedented precision. Project Oracle, they called it, a system that could predict dissident behavior by analyzing communication patterns, identifying potential regime critics before they even became active. A digital crystal ball that was currently helping 12 authoritarian regimes silence opposition with terrifying efficiency. The Lyft driver who picked me up outside Quantum's campus kept glancing at me in the rearview mirror. Rough day? He finally asked. I looked out at the passing scenery, the manicured tech campuses of Silicon Valley, monuments to innovation that concealed darker purposes behind gleaming facades. Just transitioning, I replied, checking my secure phone. Messages were already flooding in from journalists responding to the files I'd sent last night. Thousands of pages of internal documents, code samples, and deployment records showing exactly how Project Oracle worked and where it was being used. Rebecca Winters from the Washington Post, confirming receipt of all files. This is explosive. Call me ASAP. Carlos Mendez from The Guardian, need to verify your identity before we proceed. Can you meet? 25 other messages just like them. By tomorrow morning, Project Oracle would be front-page news worldwide. As the car pulled up to my apartment building, I noticed the black SUV parked across the street, 2 men inside, not bothering to be civil about their surveillance. Quantum security team, no doubt, monitoring my movements. They wouldn't risk confronting me directly, not when they didn't yet know what evidence I had or who I'd shared it with. Inside my apartment, I methodically checked for signs of entry. A hair placed on the doorframe still there. The almost invisible piece of clear tape on the drawer containing my passport undisturbed. Paranoid, perhaps, but I'd spent my career thinking about digital security. The physical kind wasn't so different. My laptop, my personal one, not the company device, was where I'd left it, secured with encryption that would take even Quantum's best engineers years to crack. I didn't power it on. Instead, I called Rebecca Winters from a secure line. Maya, are you safe? She asked immediately. For now, I confirmed. They fired me this morning, as expected. We're planning to publish tomorrow at 6 a.m. Eastern, she explained. The Guardian, Le Monde, and Der Spiegel will run simultaneously. Are you prepared for what comes next? What comes next? Such a simple phrase for the complete upheaval of my life. As much as anyone can be, I replied. Have you verified the Iranian documents? Yes, she said grimly. 3 dissidents mentioned in the files have been arrested in the past month. 2 are still missing. I closed my eyes, feeling the weight of those lives. When I first discovered Project Oracle while conducting a routine security audit, I tried to believe it was a misunderstanding. That a company founded on the principle of technology for humanity couldn't possibly be helping governments hunt down citizens whose only crime was criticizing their leaders. I'd followed protocol, reporting my concerns to my direct supervisor, Brandon Chen, Executive VP of Security Solutions. He'd seemed appropriately disturbed, promising to investigate and take my findings to CEO Garrett Wilson. 2 days later, I was removed from the security audit and assigned to an unrelated project. A week after that, I received a performance improvement plan citing communication issues and failure to align with company objectives. That's when I knew this wasn't a rogue operation. This was company policy. The lawyers want to know if you signed an NDA. Rebecca continued, bringing me back to the present. Of course I did. Everyone at Quantum does. And you understand that they'll use that against you? That they'll say you're violating confidentiality agreements, maybe even national security protocols. I thought about Amir Javadi, an Iranian student whose name appeared in Oracle's files as a potential disruptive influence based on his text messages criticizing the government. Now missing. I thought about Liu Wei, a Chinese lawyer flagged by Oracle for defending religious minorities, currently serving a 10-year sentence for subversion of state power. Let them try, I said. After hanging up, I packed efficiently, clothes for a week, passport, extra cash, the burner phones I purchased over the past month. My go bag, prepared weeks ago when I first decided to become a whistleblower. As darkness fell, I slipped out through the building service exit, avoiding the watchful SUV. A pre-arranged taxi took me to a nondescript hotel registered under a name that couldn't be traced to me. Tomorrow, when the story broke, I would be unreachable, watching the fallout from a secure location. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Last chance, Maya Gito willing to talk. Generous terms. Garrett Wilson, reaching out directly. The CEO of Quantum Systems, whose net worth exceeded $50 billion, was worried enough to make a personal overture. I didn't respond. Some lines, once crossed, can't be uncrossed. Some compromises leave permanent stains. Instead, I powered down my phone, removed the battery, and settled in to wait for morning. The explosion came precisely at 6:00 a.m. Eastern, 3:00 a.m. Pacific. Exposed, TCE giant QANTUM systems BUILT CURVILL Hain C204 authoritarian regimes, screamed the Washington Post headline. Similar headlines appeared simultaneously across global news outlets. By 5:00 a.m., #Quantum surveillance was trending worldwide. By 7:00 a.m., Quantum stock had dropped 17% in pre-market trading. By 9:00 a.m., the company had issued a carefully worded statement. Quantum Systems categorically denies providing specialized surveillance technology to foreign governments. The documents in question have been taken out of context by a disgruntled former employee. I watched it all unfold on the hotel television, feeling strangely detached, as if observing someone else's story. My phone, newly activated with a fresh SIM card, buzzed constantly with messages from journalists seeking additional comments. At 11:42 a.m., my sister Priya called from New York. "Oh my God, Maya," she said when I answered. "It's you, isn't it? The unnamed senior security architect in the Post article. How did you know?" "Because you've been weird and evasive for months, and because I know my sister. Are you safe? Do you need help?" I hesitated. Involving family meant putting them at risk too. "I'm okay, but it's better if you don't have details right now. They're saying terrible things about you on the news," she warned. "Quantum's PR team is in full damage control. They're calling you unstable, said you were fired for erratic behavior." "Standard whistleblower playbook," I replied, trying to sound calmer than I felt. "Discredit the source when you can't dispute the facts." "The Quantum app on my phone, should I delete it?" "Yes," I said immediately, "and tell everyone you know to do the same." By evening, the story had evolved. Technical experts had reviewed the code samples I provided, confirming they contained sophisticated surveillance capabilities. Human rights organizations issued statements demanding investigations. Congress announced emergency hearings, and then came the message I'd been dreading. They found Archer. Get to secure location now. Archer, my oldest friend and former colleague at Quantum, who had helped me gather evidence about Project Oracle. I'd been careful to keep his name out of my disclosures, but Quantum's internal investigation must have uncovered his involvement. I checked out of the hotel immediately, abandoning my careful plan for a new one. If they'd identified Archer, I was no longer operating in theoretical danger. 3 days later, I sat across from Rebecca Winters in a secure location, watching her review the additional documents I'd kept in reserve, my insurance policy. "This goes even deeper than what you initially shared," she said, scanning the files. "Project Oracle isn't just passive surveillance. They're actively manipulating online discourse in these countries, amplifying certain voices, suppressing others. Digital social engineering, I nodded. It's not just about identifying dissidents, it's about creating environments where dissent becomes socially unacceptable. And Quantum built this willingly. Not initially, I explained. It evolved. First, they sold basic data analytics to these governments for public safety purposes, then enhanced monitoring capabilities for counterterrorism, each step technically defensible, each expansion more intrusive. By the time Oracle became a full-fledged dissident hunting tool, too many people were complicit to turn back, including Brandon Chen. She referenced my former supervisor, who had publicly denounced me as a security risk with a personal vendetta. Especially Brandon, I confirmed. He was the primary liaison with the government clients. When I brought my concerns to him, I was essentially telling the architect that his building was designed for torture. Rebecca set down her tablet, studying me with the practiced gaze of a veteran journalist. Why did you do it, Maya? You had a 7-figure salary, stock options worth millions. You were at the pinnacle of your field. I thought about the question carefully, not because I didn't know the answer, but because the truth was both simple and complicated. My parents came to America from India in the 1980s, fleeing political persecution. I said finally. My father was a journalist who criticized the government during the emergency period. He always told me that technology should liberate people, not imprison them. When I discovered what Oracle was doing, I couldn't reconcile it with anything I believed about my work, my company, or myself. You could have walked away quietly, she pointed out, found another job, left the moral compromise behind, and let them keep hunting people whose only crime was speaking their minds. I shook my head. I spent my career building digital walls to protect people. I couldn't just watch as those same skills were perverted to cage them instead. 1 week after the initial story broke, Quantum Systems stock had lost over $80 billion in value. The company faced investigations from Congress, the SEC, and the Justice Department. Several major clients had suspended their contracts pending review. The personal cost was equally severe. My bank accounts were frozen on dubious legal grounds. Quantum had filed a civil suit against me for breach of contract, theft of proprietary information, and corporate espionage. My professional reputation, at least within the conventional tech industry, was destroyed. Brandon Chen had given interviews painting me as an unstable, attention-seeking employee who had misunderstood legitimate security products. CEO Garrett Wilson had appeared before Congress, offering careful half-truths that acknowledged some international contracts, while denying direct knowledge of how the technology was being used. Then came the breakthrough. An internal Quantum whistleblower, someone still inside the company, leaked emails directly contradicting Wilson's testimony. Emails showing he had personally approved Project Oracle's deployment in 2 countries after being explicitly briefed on its capabilities and purposes. The day after those emails became public, I received an encrypted message from an anonymous source inside Quantum. Chen cleaning out his office. Wilson called emergency board meeting. They're burning everything. Thank you for your courage. 3 days later, Garrett Wilson resigned as CEO of Quantum Systems. Brandon Chen was placed on administrative leave. The company announced it was reviewing all international contracts and recommitting to ethical technology deployment. Too little, too late. 2 months after my firing, I testified before Congress, describing in detail how Project Oracle had evolved from basic analytics into a sophisticated tool for tracking, predicting, and neutralizing political dissent. Ms. Krishnan, one representative asked, "Do you believe Quantum Systems leadership fully understood how their technology was being used?" Not only did they understand, I replied, they specifically designed it for those purposes. Project Oracle wasn't a legitimate security tool that was misused. It was created to do exactly what it did: help repressive governments identify and neutralize opposition before it could organize. And when you brought these concerns forward internally, I was silenced, sidelined, and ultimately terminated. The legal battles continue for years. Quantum Systems spent millions trying to discredit me, frame me as a thief and a liar, bury me in litigation. I countered with the support of digital rights organizations, pro bono attorneys, and a court of public opinion. 3 years after becoming a whistleblower, I stood outside the federal courthouse following the settlement announcement. Quantum had agreed to pay $1.2 billion in fines, establish an independent ethics oversight board, and terminate all contracts related to Project Oracle. They had also finally dropped their lawsuits against me. A junior reporter approached cautiously. Ms. Krishnan, do you feel vindicated? I considered the question. Vindication implied a personal victory. This wasn't about me. I feel hopeful, I replied instead. Hopeful that technology companies will recognize that building tools of oppression, no matter how profitable, has consequences. Hopeful that more insiders will speak up when they see ethical lines being crossed. What about your career? Your former colleagues say you'll never work in tech again. I smiled slightly. I'm currently consulting with privacy advocacy groups and teaching digital ethics at Berkeley. It turns out there's plenty of work for someone who understands exactly how technology can be weaponized against the vulnerable. Later that evening, I received an email from a name I didn't recognize, but an email server I did, Quantum Systems. I was hired to replace you as security architect. Today they asked me to review a new analytics package for election security in a Southeast Asian country. I remembered your congressional testimony. What should I do? I thought carefully before responding, remembering my own journey from loyal employee to whistleblower, the personal cost balance against the moral imperative. Document everything. Trust no one inside the company. Contact me through secure channels. Then I added, the source code of our lives isn't written in programming languages. It's written in the choices we make when no one is watching and the stands we take when everyone is. Sometimes the most important firewall isn't digital at all. It's the ethical boundary between what we can build and what we should build. In crossing that line, Quantum had corrupted its own source code. In exposing that corruption, I'd finally fulfilled my true role as a security architect, protecting people, not systems. 5 years after the quantum revelations, I published a book titled The Source Code: Ethics and Accountability in the Digital Age. In the acknowledgments, I thanked the unnamed whistleblowers who had followed in my footsteps, exposing similar programs at other technology companies. We have formed an invisible network of conscience within the tech industry. Engineers, designers, and executives united by the belief that technology should liberate rather than control, connect rather than divide, empower rather than oppress. The black SUVs had long stopped following me. The threats had dwindled to occasional online harassment. The legal battles had settled into an uneasy peace. But the work continued, because the source code of technology is constantly being rewritten, and with it the rules of power in our digital society. The question isn't whether technology will change the world, it's whether those changes will bend toward justice or control. And that isn't decided by algorithms or artificial intelligence. It's decided by the human beings who write the code, build the systems, and most importantly, those who are willing to speak when those systems are abused. In the end, the most important code I ever wrote wasn't in Python or C++ or any programming language at all. It was the moral code that finally compelled me to stand up and say, not with my work, not in my name, not while I can still speak truth to power,